The middle class and folks from the government are calling this a revolutionary budget. The opposition is saying it's been a damn squib. Dr. Shashi Tharoor, Member of Parliament from Thiruvananthapuram, is now joining us. Dr. Tharoor, the middle class is raving about the tax exemption being raised from 7 lakhs to 12 lakhs. The government saying about 80% of taxpayers will be benefited by this. Why does the opposition not buy into it?
Look, first of all, it helps the people who actually have jobs and who have salaries under 12 lakhs. They'll be paying fewer taxes. But it does nothing to address the fact that the large chunk of the middle class doesn't have jobs. As unemployment is rampant. We have the highest youth unemployment in the world at the moment, and even college-educated unemployment is at record levels. The last budget, you may remember, the government announced employment-linked incentive schemes. They simply slashed the budget that they announced last time from 10,000 crores down to 6,000 and change. And they didn't deliver any of the job opportunities that they promised then. So the problem is that we are looking at a situation where, yes, if you've got jobs, if you're one of the lucky few, you'll be fine. If you don't have a job, the government is not doing enough to get you any. And that's very worrying. So it's great that you have these headlines for the Delhi and Bihar elections, that you've given relief for income tax. But how you're going to actually give a stimulus to the economy, other than for these people to get a little bit of extra money in their pocket, is far from clear. And a lot of the other promises have turned out to be somewhat underwhelming.
But tell me this, one of the criticisms of the Modi government, particularly in the last 6 months or so since the general election last year, has been that the middle class is hurting. The middle class votes for the BJP, but they get nothing in return. Now that concern has been heeded to.
Yes, but that's not the entire middle class. That's there are people still in the middle class who earn more than 12 lakhs. There are people still in the middle class who are still looking for jobs, who've got college degrees and haven't been able to make a decent salary. And at the same time, I am really, really worried as to whether the next week's income tax bill she's mentioned is coming might have some fine print that will even undo the benefit of this. Because we'll have to reevaluate all our strategies once we get the fine print in the income tax bill. For example, will traditional deductions change? Will they become less relevant? Who knows? We'll have to wait and see that. So there's always a little catch with some of these goodies the government likes to dangle before us. So I think we should wait for a week to be entirely sure that even this one is worth celebrating.
Do you reckon, and I think in the last year's speech, she had mentioned that we'll eventually move to the new regime and the old regime will be phased out. So things like, interest deductions on home loans, or things like, interest deductions on Provident Fund or other ATC deductions. Eventually, the clamor has been for make the tax code simple, make the slabs and the rates simple, and the government seems to be moving in that direction.
Let's hope so. I mean, if that comes, that's something we can certainly look forward to, because the more confusing laws are, the less a benefit the ordinary citizen has from them, because you can't figure out what exactly you can benefit from and not. But, I'm always worried about the fine print with this government. You remember that this year she's talked about grand ambitions to make India a global hub for toys. And the footwear and leather sector was promised a focused product scheme, big, bold words and promises. When you look at the PLI scheme for the last budget, when they actually announced PLIs, and I've got the list in front of me, there were schemes like 6,200 crores for large-scale electronics and IT hardware. You know what they gave toys? 0.01 crore. Footwear and leather sector, 0.01 crore. Suddenly, these are the big-ticket items. God knows what other disappointments await us. I mean, I think when the chief economic advisor, no less, writes in the economic survey about the trust deficit, you can see why. Manrega hasn't gone up at all in this entire time, whereas the Rural Development Ministry has a 4,315 crore shortfall for Manrega wages. There are women in my constituency waiting 7 and 8 months to get their dues for work they've already done. And the government continues stuck there. They haven't actually changed even the allocation for this year is lower than 2022-23 spending. So demand is rising. People in the rural areas are desperately looking for work. I think last year was 82.4 million people looking for work. And if you can't give them work, you won't raise the budget, and you'll come up with new grand schemes where you've got no performance record to prove it, as I pointed out with toys and leather. then I think we've got some real doubts in our minds.
I want one final comment from you. So you're saying it's a damn squib, it misses the big picture. What would have been the one big ticket reform that you would have liked to see in this budget, which you think the government missed out on?
Well, two things. One would have been, of course, something very directly benefiting employment, especially given the flop show of last year's employment-linked incentives. Nothing came there. The second is give us some hope that the investment climate will change. There was nothing. Investment in our country is stagnant. Pulling out of our country in droves, and on top of that, domestic investment isn't coming in. So the question is, this is a country where $23,000 millionaires migrated last year out of India and became NRIs. What do we do to keep them here and keep them spending their money here and employing Indians?
All right.
Nothing at all. The finance minister didn't mention the word unemployment, didn't give any meaningful signal on investment. And this worries me. These are the two big things that we have to worry about. Already you've got a government that sadly is being rightly criticized for tax terrorism, the weaponization of the tax agencies and the ED and so on. On top of that, if people are fleeing and you're not keeping them here to invest here,
all right.
I wonder where you're going to get the growth from, without which all of this is a pipe dream.
All right, Dr. Shashi Tharoor, we'll leave it at that. Thank you very much for joining us here on CNN News 18. We'll take a quick break, but news and updates continue right on the other side.